Good morning and welcome to the 10th annual Celebrating Women in Conservation Breakfast, jointly presented by Trust for Nature Victoria and Bush Heritage Australia. I'd like to start today's proceedings by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands on which we meet and live. And although this is an online event today, wherever you are, wherever I am, we are standing on the lands of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. I'm personally on the lands of the Woi Wurrung people of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nations. And I'd like to pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and acknowledge any elders and members of Indigenous communities that are joining us here today. And I know, particularly given our wonderful speakers that we have, that there are many at this year's particular event. It's also particularly meaningful for this event, for this annual Celebrating Women in Conservation Breakfast, to acknowledge the original Australians because they are Australia's first scientists, Australia's first engineers, and they are a people who have lived a continuing culture and learnt to survive in Australia's harsh climate and live sustainably in balance with the natural environment for 60-odd thousand years. So in paying our respects, I mean that from the bottom of my heart and feel that there is so much to be gained from us coming together to share our love of country and to learn from each other. My name is Tanya Ha, and I'm absolutely delighted to be your Master of Ceremonies this morning. Now, this is the first time we're holding the event online, and while we're not in the same room together, we can still collaborate and innovate. So in acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands on which we meet, do feel free to put in the chat box of the Slido app that you're viewing this through. Tell us what country, if you know, what country are you joining us from today? Now, our speakers today, this morning, are inspiring change makers and trailblazers in their respective fields, and we can't wait to hear their stories. So as we celebrate the lead up to International Women's Day, we're going to be delighted to have join us this morning our guest speakers, Keelan Malman from Bidjara Country in Western Queensland, and also Malia Ben, a descendant of the Mamu and Gunditjmara peoples in northern Queensland, just south of Cairns. Keelan and Malia, we look forward to hearing from you both soon to talk about the theme for this year's Women in Conservation Breakfast, which is all about resilience and recovery. Now, another special welcome that I'd like to make this morning is to the morning sponsor, NAB. Events like this can't happen without the support of corporate partners, and so we thank you for your involvement this morning. Now, often when we have this event in person, we might have a room, say, of 400 to 500 people, and I tend to sort of, randomly call out a few people and get them to wave and say hello, and there's usually a nice rowdy noisy table making a lot of noise, and there's usually the DELP, the department table, being very well behaved, of course, because they work for government. But really today, because we're online, we actually have people joining us from as far away as the United Kingdom. So we have over 940 people registered for today's event. So it really shows how even during a pandemic, we can reach out and connect with each other and learn from each other and join together in celebrating women in conservation. But I will make mention of a few people that we have here today, or organisations. There's people from the Nature Foundation in South Australia, the Climate and Health Alliance, the Port Phillip and Western Port Catchment Management Authority, the East Gippsland Catchment Management Authority, some people from Zoos Victoria. We've had a Zoos Victoria speaker in the past. Environment groups such as Greening Australia and the Australian Conservation Foundation, someone from the University of South Australia, Wajara Holdings. We've got some conservation and heritage consultants. There's people from universities here, Parks Victoria, and there's someone here from an organisation that I'm very intrigued by, someone from Lord of the Trees. So talking about this with the event organisers before, we thought, are they more like Lord of the Dance and people who do a conservation version of river dancing, or is it more like Lord of the Rings and they have untold powers that we don't know about? Anyway, it'll be great to get to know you either today or at future Celebrating Women in Conservation events, when we hope that we can get together in person in the future. Now, it wouldn't be a breakfast without a prize draw, but given that we can't take business cards and do a raffle, instead this year, we're going to do a photo competition. So we hope that you're joining us for breakfast this morning and that you're ready to share photos of it on social media, because there are several great prizes on offer this morning for the best breakfast photos. So show us what you're eating, who you're eating with. Simply post your breakfast photo on Twitter or Instagram using the hashtag WICB2021, and we'll announce the winners at the end of this event. Now, I'm guessing you might want to know what the prizes are, and they sound really good. They're from Mount Avoca in Victoria. There's a 3-night stay at the Eco Lux at Mount Avoca overlooking the estate and Pyrenees Ranges, wine on arrival, a mixed dozen of wines to take home, and late checkout. That's valued at over $1,000. Another prize from Kiehl's, there's a Finest Apothecary skincare pack valued at $500. There's Polperro Dolphin Swims from Victoria, a dolphin swim experience valued at $330. Wildlife Wonders have contributed a gift card to spend at the Conservation Ecology Centre's newly launched Wildlife Wonders experience, which is just 5 kilometres west of Apollo Bay, Victoria, and that's valued at $200. Red Balloon Experiences has a gift card to spend on redballoon.com.au. That's valued at $150. And Moonlit Sanctuary is providing a family pass for a Moonlit Sanctuary tour valued at $70. Now, they're the prizes, so please do take photos from today's breakfast and share them on social media. Again, the hashtag is WICB2021, and good luck. Now, for some technical details, we're recording this event today and it will be emailed to you afterwards. But if you do have any questions or technical difficulties, you can contact us via conservation@breakfast.org.au or call 03 8610 9151. And there is a Q&A function on this event, so do feel free to post your questions anytime, but you can also upvote your favourite questions that are voted by other people, and you can comment and respond to each other. And we're going to be answering your questions through the course of the events today. We're also looking to see what other thoughts or comments that you'd like to post through the event on social media. If you hear one of our speakers say something that's a great quotable quote that means something particularly to you, do share it with hashtag WICB2021. Now, it gives me great pleasure to introduce someone who is one of my favourite people and an absolute legend, Victoria Miles. Vic has been the CEO of Trust for Nature since 2009. As the owner of a property in central Victoria with a conservation covenant, she understands the power of individuals to make a positive contribution to protecting our natural environment. Vic is a lawyer by training, and prior to joining the Trust, she held various positions, including on Victoria's Legal Services Commissioner, Chief Executive Officer of the Legal Services Board, and Deputy Telecommunications Industry Ombudsman. Vic is on the committee of the International Land Conservation Network. Now, she's got extensive non-profit experience and is a fellow of the Australian Institute of Company Directors. Her past board positions include trustee and board member of the Victorian Arts Centre, the Victorian Women's Trust, and the Melbourne Writers' Festival. Vic was chair of Circus Ausboard for 13 years and currently chairs the Abbotsford Covenant Foundation Board. Vic, I think you just sound like an absolute compulsive overachiever, so I'll hand over to you to tell us more about 10 years of this breakfast.
Thank you very much, Tanya. And I only just wanted to take a few minutes to talk about the breakfast. I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we're meeting, and for me that is the land of the Wurundjeri, and also acknowledge elders past, present and emerging. So the breakfast has been going for 10 years. This is our 10th breakfast, I should say. We started in 2012, and I thought it would be good, because it is the 10th breakfast, to just make mention of how we came to have the breakfast and what we were looking to do. So we thought it would be great if we could be part of International Women's Day. As we all know, International Women's Day is truly that. It is an international event where people come together and celebrate all different sorts of angles and issues that are relevant for women around the world. And we thought that it would be great to profile conservation and to profile the work that women have been doing and are doing in conservation and environment. And so when we came together, we started at the RACV. We were wondering how this would go, and of course, each year we've enjoyed it more and more people have started coming. And a few years ago, we really grew out of the RACV and we moved to Zinc, Federation Square. And as you said earlier, we had last year nearly 500 people. Now I think about it, a year later, fairly much crammed into Zinc in Federation Square. It has been selling out most years fairly quickly, and it is really terrific to be able to do it this year and keep that through line going and even increase more the number of people who are able to join us. So we have attracted many different speakers, and we have had speakers who have talked to us about climate change, conservation science, Indigenous land management, connection to country, threatened species, ethical finance and fair trade. And last year was very special because we were able to hear from somebody who had been involved in organising the schools striking for climate change. Each year we have Trust for Nature and Bush Heritage teams have come together. We really enjoy bringing this I suppose, experience and breakfast to you. It's wonderful for our teams to come together to do this. And throughout many of our breakfasts, Tanya herself has been a through line for us, as have our sponsor, NAB. And so, again, we look forward to bringing you the breakfast this year together in collaboration. It's great for us. And happy International Women's Day, everybody. It's great to get together virtually. Thanks, Tanya.
Thank you, Vic. And yes, you're right. I think that ability to get together virtually really has been a wonderful thing, because I would like to acknowledge that for many people, this has been a hard year. And this is what we said a year ago, that this has been a hard year, because so many people were either recovering from bushfires, or parts of the country were still experiencing bushfires at the time that we got together last year. This year, we've been going through a pandemic. This week has been a particularly difficult week for some women, particularly with what's been going on in Parliament and in Canberra. And the theme this year of resilience has been, I think, one that I think will be very meaningful and powerful for people. One of the reasons why we celebrate women and celebrate women in conservation is that events like these really bring out that women, we know how to survive and be stoic and be brave and strong when we need to. And we know how to thrive. We know how to celebrate good times. We know how to smile and laugh at a joke, and we know how to be there for each other. It now gives me very great pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Gail Austin. Gail is a communications and marketing specialist with extensive experience in strategic communications and community engagement. Now, she has held senior executive positions at Seven Network, the International CEO Forum, and Foster's, and was most recently head of marketing and communications at ANZ Institutional. Her senior roles in journalism have been based in Australia, China, UK, including The Economist Intelligence Unit and The Age. As a former journalist with specialties in environmental and rural affairs, and being from a farming family, Gail has a particular interest in the way agribusinesses can contribute to conservation, and we'll now hear from her. we're having couple of technical difficulties. So while we're just waiting on Gal to come up, I think it might be worth having a look back at some of those speakers that Vic had mentioned before. We'll now bring up a slideshow that shows you some of the speakers that we've brought to you in the past, and we'll have a quick look. So last year, going back to 2012 when it started, Anna Scarbeck, Executive Director of Climate Works Australia, addressing the climate change in business, as well as climate scientist Joelle Grigas and Monique Cohedi, co-founder of Flexicar. Then in 2013, we had an absolute legend, Sam Mostyn, the chair of CSIRO, who is also just an amazing woman, serves on a number of different boards and has a very strong women in leadership, and Alana Johnson, the Climate Adaptation Flagship Stakeholder Advisory Council. Then in 2014, that was my first year as host. We had Tamara Ruman from Canada came to Australia to speak to us, and she talked a lot about investing in not-for-profits and working with them, not just on what their financial loans are, say a loan for a new building, but how you might include energy retrofitting for that building so that the running costs are cheaper and therefore it's easy to pay it back. Moving through 2015, then to 2016, we've had a land carer, a farmer, an Indigenous leader in 2017. Moving on to 2018 and 19, Leslie Hughes, a legendary climate scientist. Then from Jenny Gray in 2019, we heard all about Zoos Victoria and how they're teaching people sustainable behaviour change in the home, but they're learning it while they're at the zoo. So very interesting thoughts from Jenny. And then last year, Amanda McKenzie, co-founder of the Climate Council, and Stella Wiedemeyer, who Vic mentioned before, a young person who organised the School Strike for Climate. This year, we have 2 Indigenous women who I'll be delighted to introduce you to later on today. And we now have Gail Reddy online to join us. Gail, welcome.
Thanks, Tanya. It's lovely to be here. And hello to everybody who's online. It's my great pleasure to be here and to hear that you're in such generous numbers. Whether you're in your pajamas or not, that's not really relevant. It's just good to have you here. If there's one thing I've learned over the years, it's that women love being with other women, and they will get up very early in the morning to get together and enter that wonderful space that is a room full of smiling women. Now, we can't see each other this time so easily, but, even a virtual room obviously has an attraction. Let me begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land that we're meeting on this morning across Australia. I'm on Wurundjeri land. I'd like to pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, and I welcome and acknowledge all First Nations peoples, including some who might perhaps be joining us today from overseas. I'd also like to acknowledge our guests, the Honourable Lily D'Ambrosio, Minister for Energy, Environment and Climate Change and Minister for Solar Homes, who is not with us in person today, but she's here by video, which is very much in the vibe. Dr. Gillian Sparks, the Commissioner for Environmental Sustainability, Victoria, and Evan Little, Head of Indigenous Affairs and Strategic Inclusion for our sponsor, NAB. And of course, Sue O'Connor, the Chair of Bush Heritage, who will close this unique version of our Women in Conservation Breakfast today in its virtual format that is really making our 10th year particularly memorable. I think you would agree. Trust for Nature and Bush Heritage are a formidable combination at the best of times. And in the last 12 months, we've continued to build on our foundations of resilience and innovation, collaborating and advocating, working together, getting our hands dirty, really, in order to conserve the amazing birds and animals, landscapes and habitats that make our land so special. When I think about women in conservation, and I know there are hundreds of you out there, possibly slurping your breakfast noodles meditatively as you listen to me, it's quite a different space. I think about all the ways that women contribute to nurturing our land and the different roles that we all play. The International Women's Day theme this year is Choose to Challenge, which I would argue is pretty much the theme of any woman in conservation. We are up to our necks in challenges, with climate change increasingly making its presence felt, the continuing fight to arrest rapid species decline, and the more mundane struggle to resource and fund all of the work that we need to do. And then, of course, there's that other thing, the virus, keeping us away from the land that we need to nurture for a large part of last year. We do choose to challenge, as the theme says, and the number of women stepping up for conservation continues to grow. At Trust for Nature, we have a unique tool to address our conservation challenges by working with private landowners, big and small, to help them voluntarily protect significant habitats and landscapes with a covenant. Our on-title covenants mean we are protecting nature forever on private land. It's a difficult task, but one which is achievable with that fantastic tool that we have at hand. That tool also means that women from all backgrounds, science, law, ecology, community, finance, marketing, you name it, are choosing the challenge and joining us to use their skills to enable successful conservation. Everybody has a contribution to make to that. Women also lead the list of our generous and highly engaged donors, people like Helen McDonald, who donated 8 absolutely glorious hectares of globally significant wetland on Phillip Island in Victoria to commemorate her passionate birdo, nature-loving and talented comedian husband, John Clark. Helen and the Clark family remain active and engaged in their conservation efforts, as so many of our donors too do. They are part of our family as well. And just yesterday, we were celebrating the news that the course that Trust for Nature delivers in partnership with traditional owners to train Aboriginal Victorians in land management, combining both conventional and traditional methods, has had an influx of women in this year's cohort. Great news. As part of their training, some of these women are already working on our covenanted properties, which vary, perhaps one of several owned by Bush Heritage. And they are working on starting work on some projects like our Basin Island project, replanting mangroves in the depleted waters of Western Port Bay, which I think you'd agree is a beautiful image as well as a fantastic thing to do. And let's not forget all of the passionate and dedicated women who choose to become covenanters, taking on a challenge that will reward their hard work in their lifetimes, but reward future generations forever, thanks to this decision our covenanters take to protect their land with a Trust for Nature covenant. These women really illustrate the theme of today's breakfast, the second theme, resilience and crisis recovery. We have so many stories to tell of our covenanters emerging from last summer's devastating bushfires, so incredibly resilient and determined to achieve conservation results despite the devastating losses. Women like Virginia Fitzclarence in East Gippsland, who with her husband Rob had made the decision before the fires to place a covenant on 146 hectares of old forest on their beautiful property, home to endangered and threatened plants and animals like the long-nosed potteroo, glossy black cockatoos and old-growth coast grey box. As Virginia says, we've seen more and more destruction of the planet, so we decided we have to look after it ourselves. Then along came the fires to give them yet another example, unfortunately, of that very destruction. Many of the large old coast grey box trees were lost, and a lot of people would have given up. But some trees remained, and Virginia and Rob simply got to work with our support, nurturing the regeneration and recovery of the understory. They went ahead with their Trust for Nature covenant, and they are quietly happy in the knowledge that they are doing their bit to provide a safe haven for endangered plants and animals, while the slow process of regeneration takes place among what remains of the old forest in this vulnerable region. With the combination of land protected by individuals like Virginia and Rob and Trust for Nature's own reserves, we've protected more than 100,000 hectares in Victoria. Incredibly important in a state where so many of our vulnerable habitats lie within the bounds of private land. And we've continued to add new covenants in fire affected areas during the year, which is really quite remarkable, as well as buying and then selling numerous properties through our revolving fund once we've protected them with a covenant. Both of these scenarios reflect the heightened interest of so many people in our community, in our natural heritage during what has been a pretty awful year for many of us. Some of the certainties of life that were challenged by COVID have made people think differently about the natural environment around them. Because actually, nature is good medicine, as our First Peoples have been telling us for a long time. And I think women and many men are instinctively connected to that concept and are inspired by the opportunity to heal and nurture nature in return. So congratulations to all of you for the contribution that you make. I'm just going to end with a quick shout out to all of the great men who drive our conservation efforts and support women in choosing to challenge and taking the lead in conservation. At Trust for Nature, we even let 2 good blokes sit on our board of trustees alongside our seven female trustees and our female CEO. It's a combination that seems to work for all of us. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak to you this morning. There's a great program ahead and I'm really looking forward to hearing your thoughts and meeting you in person next year.
Thank you, Gail. Thanks so much. And, I forgot this year, but I normally, when we're in the room, I say, are there any men here at the Celebrating Women in Conservation event? Of course, we extend our welcome to you as well. To women, men, people who identify as non-binary. This event really is about inclusion and celebrating women, but also acknowledging the allies and supporters that we have among us, our fellow Australians. And Gal, your comments about the recovery after the bushfire, the importance of land that's healthy, it gets down to very tiny things. And I thought I'd mention just a little something that I saw on Twitter that was tweeted by someone who I believe is in the online audience today, Dr. Jen Martin from the University of Melbourne. She tweeted yesterday, so relieved and grateful that Martin's Toadlet, named after my dad, is actually doing okay after the East Gippsland bushfires. We were all very apprehensive. So it's not just the landscapes that are being conserved through covenants. They support a huge number of different species. These are ecosystems. So it's vitally important work, both for humanity, but also for all creatures, great and small. It now gives me pleasure to introduce our next speaker via video. Minister Lily D'Ambrosio is a member for the ALP and has represented the electorate of Mill Park in the Victorian Legislative Assembly since 2002. In 2016, she was Minister for Energy, Environment and Climate Change and Minister for Suburban Development. And on the recent return of the Andrews Labor government, she was appointed Minister for Energy, Environment and Climate Change and Minister for Solar Homes. Minister D'Ambrosio is a leader in action on climate change, renewable energy and energy efficiency. She oversaw the passage of the Climate Change Act, Victoria's landmark climate legislation, which saw it become Australia's first state to legislate in line with the Paris Agreement for net zero emissions by 2050. The Minister has also overseen an overhaul of the Environmental Protection Act of 1970, refocusing the regulatory body to focus on the prevention of harm to human and environmental health. She is a leading advocate for a modernised Australian energy system that facilitates a smooth transition to a clean, reliable and affordable energy future. And we'll now see a video that she's provided for today.
Good morning, everyone. And thank you, Tanya, for your welcome. I'm sorry I can't be with you in person to celebrate International Women's Day. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which I'm speaking, and that is the land of the Wurundjeri people. I want to pay my respects to elders, both past and present, and the elders from other communities who may be here today. I'd also like to thank Victoria Miles from Trust for Nature and Heather Campbell from Bush Heritage Australia for inviting me to speak today. I think we can all agree that last year has been like no other. And as a nation, we've faced unprecedented challenges through the summer bushfires and the impact of COVID. In Victoria, women have played a central role in our recovery from the Black Summer fires and our efforts to protect and enhance our state's natural environment. It's events like this, in the lead up to International Women's Day, that give us a great platform to pause and reflect on this important work and to celebrate the many contributions of women to our environment. Last summer, more than 1.5 million hectares of land was burnt across Victoria, much of it public land. Hundreds of Forest Fire Management Victoria firefighters, including more than 300 women, were on the front line protecting lives, property, infrastructure and the environment. Women also played prominent roles in the immediate environmental response to the fires, like the team of Zoos Victoria and DELP, who flew into Mallacoota to set up a triage centre, and others who staffed wildlife triage units in Bairnsdale and Corryong to treat wildlife injured in the bushfires. Trust for Nature's board is made up of mostly women. Half of Bush Heritage Australia's field staff are women. We also have many inspiring women working in science within government to help our environment, including Hayley Ricardo in DELP's Natural Environment Program in East Gippsland, and Lindsay Vivian, a riparian and wetlands ecologist with the Arthur Rylah Institute for Environmental Research. Women who are traditional owners are also a big part of our conservation efforts. Tammy Gilson, a Wadawurrung woman who lives on Wadawurrung country, uses her knowledge of cultural heritage and natural resource management as DELP's Grampians Region Aboriginal Inclusion Coordinator. And we celebrated Tammy's important role when she became one of 2 Indigenous ambassadors for DELP's inaugural Victoria Nature Festival in 2020. Ebony Cook supports conservation as a community engagement ranger with Parks Victoria. She uses her proud Wadawurrung heritage to teach visitors to the You Yangs Regional Park about her people's cultural and environmental values, as one of many rangers from a traditional owner background. These women, along many others, play a vital role in helping to conserve and protect our natural environment. The longer-term biodiversity bushfire recovery work that began during the fires has continued despite COVID. I recently announced the panel that will be assisting me to review our Wildlife Act to ensure Victoria's wildlife laws are modern, fit for purpose and meet the community's expectations. We've invested more than $50 million into the biodiversity bushfire recovery to give our environment the best chance of recovering, and this work complements our world-leading Biodiversity 2037 plan. The November state budget committed more than $200 million to projects that will deliver improved biodiversity outcomes in Victoria, while also providing jobs and an excellent opportunity for many women to pursue a career in nature conservation. Members of the community have also risen to the challenge in helping our environment recover. Volunteers have worked tirelessly on projects to restore habitat post-fires. This year, through Trust for Nature's iconic estates Eastern Forest project, 146 hectares of ecologically significant land has been permanently protected in East Gippsland. This is just one aspect of the incredible work that Trust for Nature and the private landholders it works with do to protect our biodiversity and natural environment. I want to congratulate them on these efforts. While there is still a long road to recovery for our fire-impacted biodiversity, we are working hard to get there, to support and protect nature. With so many great people working in conservation in Victoria and across Australia, I'm confident we will see many, many gains. So thank you to Trust for Nature and Bushfire Heritage Australia for inviting me to speak here today. I'd like to wish you all a very happy International Women's Day.
Thank you, Minister. And I'd also like to take the opportunity to acknowledge the Victorian Government's efforts to increase female representation on the boards of state government authorities. They've also invested a lot in developing leadership and governance courses for women. And if that is something that interests you, I just might happen to mention that there are applications open for directors to be on the boards of Victoria's catchment management authorities and the water corporations. And I myself am a board member of Western Port Water, which is in the Phillip Island and Bass Coast region. And it's a very rewarding role for me. I find it wonderful to learn from the people on the board and learn about the local area. But having diversity on these boards that better reflects the diversity that is the Victorian population, that's a good thing. So if you're interested, do go to the Get On Board website. And thank you again to the Victorian Government for your commitment to diversifying government authority boards. Now, who's hungry? I am starting to see some very delicious looking photos coming through the hashtag WICV 2021. I'm now going to introduce the person that we have to thank for the recipe that many of you have used for today's breakfast. Her name is Elizabeth Chong. Elizabeth is a prominent Chinese-born, Melbourne-based Australian chef, teacher, author, and television presenter. Her Chinese cooking school in Hawthorn, Melbourne, Victoria, has seen more than 35,000 students pass through its kitchen, while across Australia her face is well known. Elizabeth's book, The Heritage of Chinese Cooking, was awarded the prestigious Prix Le Mézil, I think it's pronounced it, prize, as well as the International Cookbook of the Year in 1994. This multi-award winning chef, affectionately known as the Empress of Chinatown in Melbourne, was made a member of the Order of Australia in 2019 for significant service to the hospitality sector and to the promotion of Chinese cuisine. And I'd like to thank her for her significant service to my taste buds. We'll now hear a video from Elizabeth.
Well, I hope you've had a chance to cook my beautiful noodle soup. My family story starts a long time ago. It started in 1853 when my grandfather came out as a teenager, and he came out to work as a labourer, digging roads and making roads, clearing bush, and he was sent to Waggunya, which is a little town in northeastern Victoria. And would you believe it, my grandfather settled there in that little town from a teenager right through until 65. When he was 65, he decided to go home to bury his bones in his own land. And so he packed his young family and they spent their early days in China. And then when my father and my uncles were teenagers, they decided to come back to Australia to make their fortune or to make a new future for themselves. Everything went quite well, and my elder sister, my brother, were born here in Australia, in Carlton, actually, in Melbourne. My mother was expecting her third child, and then the news came, was the White Australia policy, that decreed that my mother, not being Australian-born, had to go back to China. And so my father, he packed up everything in Melbourne, packed up his young family, and they sailed back to China. My second sister, Irene, was born in Hong Kong before they could reach the village in China. That made her a British subject. 2 years later, I was born in China. And it took, I think, a complete 5 years from the time they returned to China before my father could get a visa for my mother, and of course for me, because I also was termed an alien at that time, being Chinese-born. So I was raised in a typical Chinese home, eating Chinese food only, speaking Chinese at home, and leading a double life and being an Australian schoolgirl outside. But my father was a very enterprising, modern, forward-thinking man, and he thought to have us integrated and be proud that we were Australian. My father encouraged us to do what we could to contribute to this country we now call home. And so I simply followed what was natural to me. I did train as a school teacher, but then I found that cooking was my passion, my natural love. And so I opened a cooking school, and I used my teacher training to teach people how to cook the way I do, how to cook the way my mother cooks. And almost 60 years of teaching has given me this position now where I feel very proud that I have contributed to both my countries, to China, to spread the heritage and culture of my own land of birth, and also to my own country now, Australia. And I'm very proud to have taught many thousands of Australians how to cook Chinese food. Well, I hope you enjoyed my Chinese breakfast as I do now, and enjoy the rest of the morning at this wonderful breakfast.
Thank you, Elizabeth, and we hope that you're enjoying the breakfast that if you used our recipe or if you chose your own breakfast. And a reminder to share your breakfast photos on Instagram or Twitter using the hashtag WICB2021. Now, it doesn't have to be Elizabeth's recipe. I've seen some scrambled eggs and mushrooms, and someone has a breakfast that is beautifully decorated with edible flowers. So feel free to tweet whatever it is that you're eating for breakfast and join the conversation that way online. But now it gives me great delight to bring us to the intellectual main course of today's proceedings. We're going to hear from two amazing speakers, but just a couple of notes about the format, how we'll go about it, is that I'm going to introduce each speaker, then we're going to see a video that tells you a little bit more about them, that gets to know them, and then we'll have a short questions and answers session with each, followed, and then the same for the second speaker. Then after we've had those two sets of videos and short questions and answers, we'll have a deeper question and answer session. And a reminder that you can send in your questions through the app, and you can upvote the questions that other people have posed. And if you want to direct your question particularly to Keelan or Malia, then do mention that in your question. So now it gives me great pleasure to introduce our first panellist and speaker. Malia Ben is a descendant of the Mamu and Gundjalji people. Malia was called to the bar in 2018 and is one of only 2 First Nation women at the bar in Queensland. Following admission to practice as a solicitor in 2014, Malia worked as a property lawyer in private practice before transitioning to the Queensland Government, where she was a senior lawyer for the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, appearing in the District and Supreme Courts. Prior to moving to the bar, Malia was the counsel assisting the Northern Coroner. At the bar, Malia has a broad practice that includes criminal defence, anti-discrimination, regulatory prosecutions and class actions. Now we're going to hear a short video that will tell you more of her story and show you scenes from her life before we'll get to meet her in person.
My name's Malia Ben and I'm a Mamu and Gungandji woman from Far North Queensland. Thank you for having me speak today on your panel. There are two stories that I would like to tell you about. They are stories about my family and my personal journey and the resilience that I have been through and that my family have been through. Personally, I think that I am here because of Aboriginal women resilience. The first story I would like to tell you about is the love story of my great-grandparents. I was not lucky enough to grow up in country, and neither was my parents, but I do have recordings of my great-grandmother because an anthropologist interviewed her, and I of course have the stories from my auntie. My great-grandmother, Toddy, was born in Innisfail, but then taken to the Cardwell and Ingham area to work as a domestic for a farm. She was taken there as a young girl, and she was there until she was taken to Yarrabah, which is the place just south of Cairns where a lot of Aboriginal people were taken to from all over Far North Queensland. It was there that she met my great-grandfather Jack Joinby, and where they were on the mission together for some time. And the story goes that they were in their separate dormitories, but that my great-grandfather had taken a liking to Toddy, and he would send her little love letters through the matron and have her pass them on to Toddy. After some time, Toddy and Jack decided that they would marry after sneaking away and seeing each other to meet up and eventually fall in love. They got married on Yarrabah Mission and were there until they were given an exemption. Interestingly, my family was the first family to receive an exemption from Yarrabah Mission and were able to move to Cairns. They had a number of children over many years, and one of them being my grandmother Ruby. The part that I love about that story is that being taken to a mission, particularly my great-grandfather Jack was taken only from Buttabadoo, which is just is very close to Yarrabah, but he was still taken there and taken from his homelands. And despite both of them being taken away from their families, they were able to fall in love, and they were able to make the most of a situation that should have been the worst of situations, and then therefore creating a family that has a legacy all the way until myself. So for me, I feel that having that resilience, having the power to make the most out of what could have been a very dismal situation, shows the power of Aboriginal people and why we should never give up. The second story that I wish to share is my personal story of resilience. As a child, I grew up with my parents having split very young. My father is an alcoholic and has struggled with alcoholism since before I was born. I didn't get to grow up with him, and therefore I didn't get to grow up with my connection to country. As an adult though, and despite my experiences in primary school and feeling like it's not something to be proud of to be Aboriginal, I am proud to be Aboriginal. And I have, as an adult, had my own discovery where I have been able to get back to country. As mentioned earlier in the story about Buttabadoo, where my great-grandfather is from, I have been able to get back there, including over the holidays, where I was able to go fishing on the beach with a beautiful family who have been able to allow me into their home and to their culture, which is my culture. And for me, as a child, I never thought that I could be a lawyer. I didn't think that that was something that I could achieve in the way that I grew up. Despite that, I am one of only 2 Aboriginal women at the bar alongside Avelina Tarago. Although I haven't been able to grow up in country, I feel a great responsibility to my family and also to my people in Yarrabah. they are the ones who are the caretakers of that land. And through my work, I work very closely with Aboriginal defendants from Yarrabah. They are the reason that I enjoy doing the criminal work that I do, and I strive to make them proud each and every time I represent them. By me looking after those people, my people, and them therefore being able to stay on country and look after country, I believe is a full circle of resilience and how I'm able to contribute back to the community.
Thank you, Malia. And we'll now have her join us for a couple of short questions, but we will have more questions and answers later on when we have a panel discussion. But Malia, tell me, what was it like growing up? You know, did you think you were going to be a lawyer? How did you overcome, I guess, low expectations? Is that what you experienced?
Sorry.
Oh, now
there
we go. Yeah.
Definitely low expectations. I didn't know any lawyers in my family or anyone that had went to university. My mum and I were the first in our family to go to university, and we did that around the same time. We didn't have any money, and we both did our degree off a really mini laptop. So that's before the times of an iPad. But between the Indigenous school at James Cook University, which I'm so grateful for, because I don't know if I would have been able to finish my degree without their support, and also the support of my mother. But yes, we both did our degrees on that mini laptop, and despite all of that, we still managed to finish our degrees. I also never thought that I would be a barrister. There's no Aboriginal women at the bar before Evelina and I, just other than another woman and a Torres Strait Islander woman. But at the time that I went to the bar, there were no women there. So it was a really big leap just in terms of becoming a barrister and being the first in my family alongside my mum to go to university. We still managed to do that, and I also have the support of Evelina Tarago, who came to the bar not long after me. But without that, yes, it is really difficult when you can't see what you want to be. So a big part of what I do and what I want to give back is to be something for young ones to see so that they can be that.
That's a wonderful contribution, and I imagine that that it would have been difficult to be a trailblazer, because on two fronts. I mean, in the legal profession, there's a saying, you know, it sort of extends to a lot of different professions. The big figures tend to be pale, stale and male. So on one hand, you're a woman rising up through the legal system, and you're also an Indigenous woman as well. You were telling me a story the other day about your graduation and your experience on graduating. Tell me a little bit about that and what you did in that circumstance.
Yeah, that's right. Amongst all of that, I'm also regional. So when I graduated, I was in Brisbane, and I'm talking about the graduation of the bar course. So we had just been in Brisbane for 6 weeks. I've been away from my family, and we had 1 day off in that entire 6 weeks to become barristers. And I had made really good friends throughout the course, two lovely men who I was standing with on the night of the graduation. And a Queen's Counsel had come up to us as a group, and he shook the male on my left-hand side, and he shook the hand of the male on my right-hand side and completely ignored me, and tried to start the conversation, but I wasn't having any of that. I put my hand out and said, "Oh, well, by the way, I'm Malia Ben, and I've just graduated as well," to make sure that, you know, he would have known that I had graduated. I wouldn't have been in that room had I not. But I wasn't going to let someone get away with not congratulating me. I had just finished the exact same course, and I deserved the recognition just as much as the two wonderful men on either side of me.
And one more question before we pause for this session now. I wanted to know tell us about the importance of your role, given that for Indigenous Australians, there can be very difficult and unequal experiences of the justice system, and that might not necessarily be recognised by people who aren't Indigenous. How do you think what do you see your role is, or how important is it that there be people like you who can bridge that system, who can speak as one of us with your community, but also be, working in the law and know how the system works and can advocate on behalf of your community?
I think a big part of it is me being a woman. So, as I said, there was no one at the time that I went to the bar who was a woman in my field. And for me, my responsibilities and the obligations I feel I have is that culturally there are things that women are not going to speak to men about. So that's where I am able to bridge that gap, and where I'm able to help educate the legal system where things are not appropriate, as they have things that they've done and the way that they've done it in the past are not appropriate, and that for Aboriginal women to have a dignified experience in the legal system, there's certain changes that need to be made. And that's where I come in. I'm able to educate them. And at the same time, sometimes it might not be outcome changing for my client, but it's the process that she has been through where I'm able to make it a better experience for her, so that it's not it's always going to be traumatizing. But if we can minimise that trauma for my clients, that's where I feel I make the biggest difference.
So is your resilience contagious? Can you impart that to the people that you work with?
I'd like to think so, and I've had that feedback in the past. You don't do it for the feedback, you don't do it for the recognition, but you can tell when a woman has felt that she has been respected and has had some form of dignity left intact after the experience. And I would hope that that resilience is contagious, and if that's the case, then, like as I said before, they're the ones that I hope I make proud.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, and we would definitely like to see more of that. Now, we'll leave it there for the moment with Malia. We're now going to hear from our second panellist. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Keelan Malman. She's a Bidjara woman. She became the first Aboriginal woman to run a commercial cattle station at the age of 30 when she took over Mount Tabor, 2 hours from Agathella and the black soil plains of Western Queensland. And it's in the heartland of Bidjara country, and it's a place where Keelan's ancestors left their marks on caves and rock walls over 10,000 years ago. Keelan won the Barnardos Mother of the Year award in 2016 because, women aren't just running cattle stations, they're also looking after kids as well. She was awarded a member of the Order of Australia for her contribution to the Indigenous community in Queensland in 2020. And she's also a best-selling author. Her book, Power of Bones, is an unflinching memoir about childhood poverty, abuse, and racism. Her tale happily includes an inspiring story of how women's extraordinary strength through diversity, due to her deep connection to her ancestors' country, culture, and language, can bring her through difficult times. We're now going to hear a video from her, which has some absolutely delicious vision of the lands on which she's coming to us from.
Morning, my name's Keelan Mailman. I'm a proud Bidjara woman. We're here on traditional country. I've managed Mount Tabor for near 24 years. We're inside Dickety, which means the cockatoo, white man term for lost city, in a very sacred cultural place of my people, where ancestors walked for thousands and thousands of years before I was even thought of. So talking about the resilience and all the heartaches and good times that have come through my life, I've been here, and all the hard work and stuff that I've done on Mount Tabor has been 23 years of a lot of hard work to great achievements, to successes that have happened for me. And through all the hard times of drought, bushfires, a lot of different things. I've seemed to have come through with the resilience and the strength that I think all women would have. If you dig a little deeper and try a little harder, you can do and become anything that you want to be. And caring for country for me on Mount Tabor has been such a rewarding experience through my lifetime, to all the cultural stuff that's here, that's been handed down through generations. And I know that there's a massive amount of people out there, men, women, and even children, that have got a great love for caring for country and for land. So I also was recognised in 2005 as the first Aboriginal woman to manage a commercial cattle property in Australia. So that was a great reward for me to be recognised as that. I never ever looked at it though. I was a pretty humble sort of a person that just went along and wanted to do my very best. So I continued to do that. Pretty much all the work here on the property has been at the sole hands of myself, with a little bit of help along the way from a couple of people that I hold very dear for that. So it has been really hard. I did write a book in 2014 where I become the author of my own book, The Power of Bones, where I spoke about a lot of stuff, a lot of hard stuff, from sexual child abuse, domestic violence, racism, to be a woman doing a man's job with managing the property, to also being an Aboriginal woman at that, to be managing it. So I've hoped that I've inspired a lot of my children, my grandchildren, and a lot of the up-and-coming generation of the Bidjara people, and also the wider community, that I believe that women are the backbone to our tribes in Aboriginal culture. The women are the backbone to the people. So I'd like to think that I am that as well, with my family and also with the my tribe, with everything that I've done. So I suppose, my thing out there to everyone is possibly, hopefully one day, get to read my book. Don't judge a book by its cover, because I have many pages to my life and my story. And I think a lot of people then will see the resilience and the adversity that I overcome. Mount Tabor has been my home and my job for the near 24 years that I've been here in March this year. And through all of my heartaches and good times, and doing everything, at the sole hands of myself, with a bit of help along the way over the years, I have to give all of my thanks to my ancestors that have been with me every day and kept me safe on my journey out here on Tabor, and having all the love and support of my brothers and sisters and my children and grandchildren and nieces and nephews is the thing that's kept me strong, doing this job, and to leave a legacy behind that would make them all proud. And the day will come one day when I do go, and I thank my ancestors for making my home and my job a safe and most beautiful place, with so many beautiful memories that I'll treasure until the day that I die, living here on Gurudanda, which is Mount Tabor in Bidjara language. know. So what I believe that I have a lot of, that a lot of people don't have, was even when I wrote my book, as a black woman, I was told that it took a lot of courage and a lot of guts to talk about all of what I spoke about. And I've always been that person. Don't beat around the bush, get straight to the point, say what's on my mind, get it straight out there. Whereas a lot of people, they don't have that. They don't have the courage to just be them, be you. And, you know, I've always said to my kids, if you can go along through life, just be you, lead from the heart, because you'll never go wrong if you're leading from the heart. And, you know, just as long as you're not really hurting people badly along the way, you know, that's what you need to have. A lot more people need to have the courage, the strength, the guts, and be honest. Be honest with what you're doing, you know, and like I said, lead from the heart and you'll never go wrong in your life. We named ourselves as spiritual travellers. Me and Jane were the only two women, and we had to really survive off nothing. And all I was thinking was, fuck, these fellas are that big, they're going to eat all the food. But what it was lucky was, Aboriginal people have got this gift, and it's to always look out for each other in that family sense, no matter where you are around the whole of Australia. And because I was so spiritually connected to country, they showed me the fruits that were in season. So my team was so grateful that they had me on there, because I remembered all the fruits that were in season, what we could eat. We got permission. So we ate quite well. But, you know, that was it was a journey that I could have nearly lost my life that day, on that journey, 15 days on country in the Kimberleys. We climbed to a peak, we lost track of where we were going, and we ended up on the highest peak up there around Lake Argyle, and we weren't supposed to be there, but we all got a little bit lost, and we had to sign stuff before we left that you could die or get seriously injured on the trip. I didn't tell my children that when I left, because they would have been all panicking. So we were climbing up and I lost my footing and I started sliding, and it was about a 150 metre drop, and I thought, fuck, I'm dead. Ancestors, please help me. And I just kept sliding, and I grabbed the big chunk of grass to try and pull me up, and it just come with me, and I thought, I'm dead. I'm friggin' dead out of my own country. And thankfully, the ancestors gifted me that, because I was coming towards a little gum tree that was about that thick, deeply embedded in that slippery mountain. I hooked onto it for dear life, and that's why I'm still here today telling the story. Oh, with all different people, you know, I love to listen to everyone's stories, because everyone's got a story and everyone's got their own journey. So, you know, like, looks can be very deceiving, whereas people might think that people have had such a good life or had it so easy, but that's not the case with a lot of people, you know. And I suppose when I done that leadership program, it taught me a lot in that sense, you know, to just hear so many different stories from people.
Thank you so much for taking us into your country, Keelan. And thank you for joining us. To the audience, we probably could have made that video a little bit shorter, but given that, myself and the event organisers, we're based in Melbourne and we've been under lockdown a lot, and just seeing wide open spaces with, Australia's nature is just gorgeous and wonderful. How important is that to you, Keelan, the connection to country, the land, and how does that influence you in raising cattle?
Morning, Tanya, and morning, everyone, and thank you so much for having me as a guest and on the panel today. It's an absolute privilege. You can't beat nature. Wide open spaces, and I did think, oh my God, there's a fair bit of me going on here, but appreciate what you said with all the lockdown, because we've all had a very hard year this year all around, not only in Australia, all around the world, which is so, I'd like to thank my ancestors and pay recognition to them this morning, and my Bidjara people, past and present, upcoming, and also to give my respect and acknowledgement to all traditional owners country where I could be reaching out to around our great country today, and to any of the elders or traditional owners that are in the crowd. But yes, I really believe that being out on country with so much space, you can get lost in the city. I call it the rat race, but it's very peaceful out here, and it sort of helps. Being in nature helps your day a lot more, for me anyway.
Do you think that, like having that connection to country, being an Indigenous woman, do you think that gives you, I guess, an advantage as, as someone who has a cattle property? Like, do you have your finger on the pulse of the land, so to speak, and does that help you with land management?
Yes, absolutely. I don't do a lot of the cattle stuff, though. That's the leasees stuff there, but I do fences and bores and lick supplements. But yes, I think that has been a big thing that's helped contribute. Being a traditional owner, one of the First Nations people, being on country, Mother Earth, that's always been our provider as the First Nation people. So we care for Mother Earth, and she provides for us. So yeah, I think I have maybe a little upper end there on that.
And have you found it as a woman in this space? Are there times that you you kind of feel like you want to show the men how it's done, or that they've been surprised by what they've learnt from you? How's that been?
A lot of different times I've always thought that as a woman, I've sort of intimidated some men, but toughen up. I mean, you got a little bit more muscle than me. Well, you're supposed to. So for us women, I think, I'm not out to. I don't work like that. I'm not out to sort of prove that point to anyone, because I believe everyone, judge people as you see them, and hopefully how they judge you. But it has been surprising, like I said, but I like to teach as well. I at any time to ever have anyone think that they're not capable of something. It's all about getting in and having a go. So yeah, that's just me.
And getting onto our core topic of resilience, can you share with us just one example of a tough time that stands out in your memory that you've gone through, and what got you through it?
Well, many of them, but I'll go to fighting the fires on the property a couple of Christmases back was a tough one for me, because I'm so far away from my children and I don't get to see them much. And to have a couple of my girls and a couple of my grandchildren come home to have Christmas dinner with me, and for me to be out fighting fires, because I was sort of on them, for about 14 days at that time. I usually have the support of the properties and our fire brigade and so forth. We all come together, but at that particular time, we've always had it a little bit harder around the Christmas time if we're home fire time. So it was something that I could control at that time by myself with the help of a nephew. So it was really hard for me not to see my children and grannies for so long and then be out fighting fires. So it wasn't until the fire jumped around about the 4:30 that afternoon that I got to come home and have Christmas dinner, and that my grandchildren and my girls waited for me. And I believe that it was really hard. It was really hot. It was really hard. You're in timber country that you're trying to pull up, and I just wanted my neighbouring properties to be able to have their Christmas dinners. But the people that got me through that, once again, was my ancestors that have got me through so many tough times and heartaches out here. And so I have full 100% credit to my ancestors for keeping me safe on a day-to-day basis, and also to my family and neighbouring properties that help contribute to helping make my job a little bit easier.
Yes, it's. I think it's times like that that do, remind you of the things that are really important. Now we'll bring Malia into the discussion as well, so she'll rejoin us. And a reminder to everyone that you can send through your questions through the app, and you can upvote questions from that other people have posed. One thing that I wanted to ask you, Malia, because it's one of the key differences between the two of you, is you didn't grow up on country. You came to it later in life. How have you found that experience of going to your homelands, and has that been a source of strength and resilience for you?
Thank you.
Malia, did you get that question?
Yep, I got the question. For me,
okay.
when I first went on country years ago now, I was there with my auntie and was just having a wonderful day, and didn't notice it at the time. But when we started driving back to Cairns, I started having anxious feelings again. So I do suffer from anxiety, just generalized anxiety in terms of, life can be quite full on sometimes. But I realized as I was driving away that the entire time that I was home, I didn't feel anxious once. And it wasn't a conscious thing until I drove away. And that's when I realized that without asking for it, country was looking after me. And now every time I go back there, I know I'm going to have that feeling. And I'm really grateful for that. And when I'm home, in terms of my home in Cairns, I yearn for that feeling, and being not able to go there as much as I would have liked to during COVID, I knew my mental health was suffering from not being able to go back there. That's how much, without even knowing it, it helps me when I'm back home on country.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because we talk about connection to country often in relation to Indigenous people, but I'm, half Chinese. My mother's background is English, and just on the weekend, after again more lockdowns, I revisited Newport Lakes Park, which is a bush park in Melbourne, for the first time in years, and I just felt this sense of relief when I got there. Do you think that that's something that, getting a broom and making a sweeping statement, do you think that Westerners sometimes forget that they're connected to the environment, that we're part of nature, not separate from it? Either of you can answer that if you like.
I will. Yes, I believe that that's true, Tanya. I always agree with Malia, being on country and and living in country is such a very powerful thing for, you know, Aboriginal people and island people living on traditional country. You've got your ancestors, all that. So in the city, yes. I have also said to my children, you know, like the great lights of the city, you know, and you can get so busy, you can get so caught up that you're forgetting, and you don't get enough of nature. So, you know, it can gobble you up. So, yeah, maybe more bushwalks for everyone.
Definitely, and not just, you know, the bushwalks, but also the city. There's the light pollution as well. You can't see the night skies. We've got a question from Amy. She said, "I love the sentiment that you can't always change the outcome, but you can change the process and the experience. This is inspiring for those dealing with environmental issues. Do you ever get overwhelmed, and how do you reset?" Keelan, I think we'll start with you, and then we'll see if Malia has something to add to that.
My mind sort of went in quite a few places there, Tanya, on that question. Can you just give me a quick little run by again so I can touch base with it? A bit early in the morning.
Yeah, given that we can't always change the outcomes, and, you know, with dealing with environmental issues, do you ever get overwhelmed, and how do you reset? And I think, you know, Malia, I think we might broaden that question to you about being overwhelmed by any issues. How do you reset, not just environmental?
Yeah, I do. I sort of get pretty overwhelmed when I'm going into the big cities and stuff, you know, and because I'm living out here on such a big property with nature, and I do get overwhelmed with that. So I always sort of look forward to coming back home to reset myself and to recharge, being back home on country. I don't know if that fully answers the question that someone had asked, but that's how I get to recharge anyway, always coming back to country.
Well, I think it does answer it in a way, and I know we have some people here, both from Deakin University and University of Melbourne, where they both have research groups looking at the mental health benefits of contact with nature. So I can very much understand that as a source of reset. Malia, did you have something to add?
Definitely. For me, in terms of the process, and that's where you can make a difference. It's not always the outcome that you might make a difference in. For me, it's sorry. It's morning. Sorry. For me, it is the way I recharge. If I can't get back out to Yarrie, I will sit in my backyard with a towel on the ground, and I'll have my dog with me, and I just take a couple of hours to not have my phone with me or a book or anything. I'll just sit there and listen to nature. And I do live in only 10 minutes out of Cairns, but I still have my own backyard. So I make the most of that tiny property that I have, and I'll just lie there. I'll just lie there and let the ground re-energize me, let me listen to what it's trying to tell me, even though I'm still a little bit far away from my home. It will give me the re-energy that I need to keep going, because sometimes it is overwhelming and you feel like you're not making a difference. But lying there will remind you of all the things you have achieved, and the work that you still need to do, and that you just need sometimes to be still, and you need to listen. You need to listen to what your country is trying to tell you, because in the city you will get caught up in the hustle and bustle, but when you take that time out, it has found effect on me, and that's something that I'm grateful for, that I have that piece of country, even in my own home, to lie on the ground and listen.
Yeah. A question that Dominique has sent through: how do Westerners walk together with traditional custodians better? We have so much to learn, yet there is so much potential. It's hard to know where to start.
Well, obviously I'll start again. You haven't. I believe that, you know, like, I'm a big believer in reconciliation, And I know there's a hell of a lot of beautiful people out there in this world, but we've still got work to do. And it's about getting a full understanding of the First Nations people and give. So I think every individual is different. So, like I said, I'm a big believer in reconciliation. And I think that if we keep working together, and everyone's got a journey, so to get respect, and it doesn't matter what age you are, and you're never too old to learn anything. So, yeah, have the interest, and be genuine about it, because well, with me anyway, I can pick up a fake person pretty quickly, and I'd sort of tell that person that. So, working together and having that genuine interest, because I love to listen to everyone's journey, because everyone's got a story. So, yeah, it can be done, and it's not too late to start now.
Malia.
I agree wholeheartedly with that. The listening part is the biggest one for me, and the respecting the differences between us. Obviously, me and Kellen are we're both Aboriginal women, but we're completely different Aboriginal women, and we need to be respected for the differences. And the way you do that, the way that you're able to respect the differences, is by listening. So asking the questions. Sometimes too, I think that we are expected to speak for everyone. We can't, we never can, we never want to. So if you're asking us to come along and speak to, or to write a paper on something, it's always got to be expected that it can only be from the lens of us and our community and our family, if we've been given that speaking role on behalf of them. But if not, it might only be on behalf of you and your immediate family. But definitely reconciliation is the only way we're going to be able to walk together. But before we walk together, we've got to listen to each other.
Oh, we've got a great question that's come in from Susan. If you had all the money and all the power to use it, what is the first thing you would do to help our environment? Let's start with you this time, Malia.
To help our environment, it would be to invest in the people who have the skills and the knowledge for that. So the first step would be identifying who would be able to use that money, to use it best, and who's going to be able to make the biggest difference. Obviously, it's not going to be me. So if that was my money, the first thing would be, who am I going to give it to? Who's going to be the ones that are going to make the biggest difference? And I'm looking at, I think, one woman right now who'd be able to make a big difference and knows where that money would go to best.
Have you got a response to that, Keelan?
Well, that's dangerous. But, I've always said you can have all the money in the world and all the riches in the world, but if you don't have a good, kind, caring heart, it's worth nothing. But what I would like probably do with it is work more with the First Nations in different environment areas and keep pushing through to the importance of fires. We're in mountain timber country, so I'd use it in a lot of things. I'd spread it around, so if it's a lot of money, I'd spread it around. But up here, where I think we need to have a lot more people get more of an understanding of the importance of listening to the First Nations people and how we practiced with fires. So Cool Bones up in the country where we are here in massive timber country enables us to have fire breaks, because we've been through a lot of sadness and a lot of heartache over the few years with all of the devastations that fires have done. So I really think that, all ages, all genders, all nationalities should really think more about the importance of caring for country with the fires, that, so that we don't have that big devastation and the loss of lives and homes and animals and all of that. So, I talk a little bit more on that, so I hope I haven't talked off track with that for you all. But that's what I would do with the money anyway.
Good answer, I think. Look, that's all we've got time for with questions and answers for the panel discussion. So thanks for your contribution. But I do want to give each of you an opportunity to just leave us one last pearl of wisdom, a take-home thought, or something that you'd really like the audience to remember from what we've talked about today. Keelan, I'll start with you.
Of course you would, Tanya. Thank you very much.
Well, actually, I hadn't warned. I just saying I hadn't actually warned Malia that I was going to ask that, so I'm giving her time to think by asking you first.
Okay. That's great. Firstly, just before closing off for me, I'd love to thank the Trust of Nature, Bush Heritage, for giving me the opportunity of being a speaker, for Alison and Chris at Carnarvon that are on a property that's owned by Bush Heritage, for all the help and support that they've given to me. So what I would like to leave with everyone is, once again, I'll come back to, I'm a big believer in reconciliation. All nationalities, all ages, and all genders. We need to work together, and it's like Malia said, listen, more listening, more talking, more helping each other, and I think that we could make our world, we need to build the bridge together. So to be able to build the bridge together, we could make our world and our country in nature a beautiful place to live on. For now, for generations, and many more to come when we're all dead and gone. Thank you all so much for having me, and happy International Women's Day to all those beautiful, strong women out there, and thank you once again. It's been a privilege and honour.
Thank you, Keelan. It's been a delight to have you. Malia, hard act to follow, isn't she?
Definitely. No, much respect. I'd like to say thank you to Trust for Nature and Bush Heritage Australia as well. And I think my sign-off will be that you can't be what you can't see. And sometimes even on your hardest days and you think you're not making a difference, just by you being there, you are inspiring the ones that are coming through. And so you got to keep pushing forward. You got to keep your head up high, keep sticking to what your values are and the reasons why you're there. And then eventually people will see what they can become, because there'll be more of us in those important leadership roles and places where decisions are being made. So that would be my sign off. Just keep sticking at it, and you just don't know who you're inspiring just by being there and working very hard in your everyday life.
And Malia, thank you for your commitment and your passion for your work, because I think it's worth saying that you're not just a role model for Indigenous young people, you're also a role model for non-Indigenous young people. And you're not just a role model for girls who are interested in law, you're also a role model for boys who are interested in law. So I think that it's very important that we have that diversity. So thank you again for your contribution today, and stay safe and dry in Cairns. I gather that it's a bit stormy up there.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, I know we sort of don't have it online, but please sort of join me in applauding or put your comment in applause in thanking our two speakers today, Keelan and Malia. Thank you so much for sharing your stories with us. And we'll now move on to the next section. So wasn't that just thought-provoking and inspiring, and it's making me feel more determined and more committed to the work that I do in the diversity space, and to talk to more people who are the traditional owners of the lands in which I live. I'd now like to introduce Eve Liddell, Eve Ann Liddell. Eve Ann is a proud Central Arrernte and Luritja Purton woman from Central Australia. She grew up in Alice Springs, spending time between town and country. Eve Ann has dedicated her career to working in Aboriginal affairs, working to create real change in the lives of Indigenous people. For the most part, she's worked in the welfare sector, working to support vulnerable families, starting as a frontline caseworker and then moving to policy management and senior leadership roles in the Northern Territory and Victoria. In an effort to create change at a national level, Evan accepted a role with the National Australia Bank as Head of Indigenous Affairs and Inclusion in February 2020. In doing so, she hoped to leverage the power and might of corporate Australia to improve outcomes for Indigenous communities and all customers experiencing vulnerability. In her role at NAB, Evan is responsible for supporting the business to build its capacity to understand and respond to the needs and aspirations of Indigenous customers and more broadly customers experiencing vulnerability. In this role, she's responsible for NAB's Reconciliation Action Plan, the Framework for Customers Experiencing Vulnerability, and the Accessibility Action Plan. Working across the organisation and in partnership with others, Evan aims to deliver on NAB's commitments to Indigenous Australia and to support the continued work in diversity and inclusion for colleagues, customers and community. And we'll now hear from her.
Hello everyone, it's a pleasure to be here today to celebrate the critical role that women in conservation continue to play and to support two amazing organisations, Bush Heritage and Trust for Nature. As an Indigenous woman, it was really inspiring to hear Keelan and Melia speak and to be part of this event of other women who care about country. I also come from a cattle station in Central Australia and have a great appreciation for country, specifically my own traditional homelands. I remember my grandmother taking me out to country when I was younger to places of significance and particularly full moon and the stories that she shared with me around protecting those sites and also the value of country in general, but for Indigenous women. NAB continues to be a proud sponsor of this event, and strengthening the environment to be more resilient to natural disasters is something we continue to invest in and really care about. We know that more Australian communities are being impacted by natural disasters, and I think the last 2 years of disasters that have impacted on Australian communities and families through fire and flood and drought, a testament to that. NAB wants to continue to help communities to adapt and improve their sustainability through innovation. One example of the work that we are doing in this area is that our NAB Foundation Community Grants has $1.2 million available to support local communities and organisations to prepare for natural disasters and support recovery and build resilience. Grants available are up to $10,000 and they're available until 30th of July 2021. So if you know of anyone who would benefit or any community organisation that may be interested, this is a plug to please share that information around. The grant funding that we have available currently builds on our previous work to support organisations and to improve the environment. Examples of some of our partnerships have been a partnership we've had with Australian Wildlife Conservancy and the Dunbenna Aboriginal Organisation, where we provided a SEEK grant to support joint management of nearly 800,000 hectares along the Kimberley coast in Western Australia. Our natural capital work also aims to strengthen the resilience of agribusiness. Currently, we're working with Climate Works Australia and engaging widely across agri and conservation communities to develop a harmonised set of natural capital metrics to make it easier for everyone to invest in natural capital and to gain recognition for their efforts. This is all part of our focus to serve customers well and help communities prosper. And, it requires a long-term sustainable approach to decision making. At NAB, we're committed to improving the resilience of all our customers. And, the last 12 months has clearly shown how important this focus is. We know that resilience, whether it's environmental, personal or financial, is crucial. one of the things we've done in the last 12 months is established a Indigenous customer service line for our Indigenous customers who are living in metro areas and communities. It's really pleasing to say that this line is being utilised more by the Indigenous community, and we're seeing an increasing number of calls for people needing to access financial help or talk about any kind of money matters. And I think that's just one great example of some of the things that NAB is doing in the Indigenous space. So on that note, I'd just like to say thank you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the program, and it's been a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Evan, for your words, and thank you again, NAB, for your ongoing support and sponsorship of this breakfast. It's for everyone I've talked to who's been involved in this. It really is a favourite event in our calendars for the years. Now we're going to hear from Bush Heritage Australia. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Sue O'Connor. Sue has served as a chairman, director and senior business leader with ASX top 10 global unlisted companies and high-profile statutory authorities. She brings to the Bush Heritage Board her commercial acumen and deep expertise in technology, climate change, capital management and risk. She is currently chair of Yarra Valley Water, a director of Mercer Superannuation, Treasury Corporation Victoria, Cordia Limited and Climate Works Australia, and an advisory council member of the Monash Sustainable Development Institute. She's also a photographer and a video artist who uses her art to promote conversations about the environment and our relationship and response to the natural world. Hello, Sue.
Good morning, Tanya, and good morning, everyone. What a fabulous breakfast. We've shared together. It's not quite done, so stay with us for a little bit longer. Thank you so much to the women we've heard speak so far. This has been a different breakfast, which has both set strengths and some things that we miss from being face-to-face. And to have over 900 people register is one of the strengths, because we can spread and engage across Australia and overseas. So thank you. As a chair of Bush Heritage, I hear the words resilience and leadership a lot. For resilience, it's about climate resilience, the resilience of nature to recover from bushfires and flood. On leadership, it's how individuals and groups work to imagine and create a better future. We only have to think of the women in our families, our best friends, our female colleagues, the challenges that they've faced and how they've responded to it, to think about resilience and to think about how they're leading to make a difference. As some of our speakers have touched on, I have been describing 2020 as a weird year, environmentally, mentally and physically, both with the Black Summer bushfires and then with COVID. I don't think any of us have come through that year without being changed. I know I have, and I've learned some things about myself and I've learned some things about others that I think hopefully will make me a better person. As always, I've been grateful for the steadying presence of nature, although being from Melbourne, a lot of the time that was just in my small backyard in Richmond. I want to mention that this year is the 30th anniversary of the foundation of Bush Heritage. It's a pretty amazing milestone. If you're like me, I can remember, I think, what I was doing 30 years ago, but I know that there are some people who are on this breakfast who weren't even born 30 years ago. So the question is, what do we want the future to look like 30 years from now? What future do you want? What future do we want? And my question to you is, how will you take an active role in creating that better future? Listening to this morning's speakers, I was really struck by the fact that the future won't happen without us. It will take resilience, leadership, empathy, courage, and leading from the heart. So I'd like to thank all of our speakers this morning: Gail, Elizabeth, Lily, Malia, Colleen, Van, and our MC, Tanya, because each of you individually and collectively are showing the way, reminding us about how it is that we work individually and together to create that better future. Because there are some people at Bush Heritage that I'd like to call out who are doing that as well. There's Kate Taylor, a field officer at Bon Bon Reserve. Nick Cooper-Petey in South Australia. She's been working closely with Sarah Petrovic, a Monash graduate and science intern. Sarah, who by the way is vegetarian, has been dissecting feral cats to monitor their native species diet, only to find a delightful 63 centipedes in one hungry cat. Apologies if you're still eating your breakfast. Another one I think of is our University of WA graduate, Aline Gibson Vega, who's been studying the dialect of the Western grass wren in our Hamlin Reserve, with a view to potential translocation to the Dirk Hartog Island to protect their dwindling population. There's Sarah Eccles, our Indigenous Partnership Officer who works in Tasmania. Clearly this photo was not taken in Tasmania, and is a Wadawurrung woman from Victoria. She's been with Bush Heritage for more than a decade and instrumental in building our Aboriginal Partnerships program. Or our freshwater ecologist, Dr. Pippa Kern, based at the Springs at Edgbaston Reserve in central West Queensland, who has been successfully released a captive breeding population of the critically endangered red-finned blue-eye into the wild. Or the notorious RFBE, as we like to call them. And finally, our CEO, Heather Campbell, who is leading Bush Heritage to deliver on our responsibilities to protect and restore precious bush and waterways. I could go on about assure the list of accomplishments in the future, and this room would fill a year full of breakfasts. I'd like to acknowledge the two women whose deep commitment to conservation, coupled with a knack for collaboration, has seen this morning's event happen. Could you raise your latte glasses, your tea, or your glass of water to Vic Miles from Trust for Nature and Heather Campbell from Bush Heritage? Two CEOs who understand that change only comes from working together to ensure the widest impact is made. And to pick up on Malia's point, you can't be what you can't see. And here we have two fine leaders who are women making a difference in conservation. This is the 10th anniversary of the Women in Conservation Breakfast. And what an amazing thing we've seen happen over a decade. My challenge to you is to think about what would you like the next 10 years to look like? What would you like the next 30 years to look like? And think about, what am I going to do? How am I going to lead? How am I going to work with others to make that future happen? Thank you all again for making your time for this breakfast, and I hope you have a lovely day. I'd now like to hand back to Tanya.
Thank you so much, Sue. They're really inspiring words, and I think that International Women's Day theme of challenge to change, or was it choose to challenge? I'm not sure. Anyway, it was about challenging us, and let's challenge ourselves today. So I'd encourage all of you to have a think about what's one small thing or maybe one large thing that you can do today that will help set us in a direction to start creating the future that we want to live in. So if you like, pop it in the chat box. It might be that you'll find the best tweets of today and retweet them. It might be that you'll find out what insect attracting plants are native to your local area. What can I plant in my garden to support local biodiversity? You might find a local landcare group or make a commitment to find a Friends of group so that you can do some conservation in your neighbourhood. Or, as I mentioned before, you might like to investigate the opportunity to be a woman on one of Victoria's Water Corporation or Catchment Management Authority boards. Have a think about how you might make a contribution and share it with us through that chat, that conversation box. Now we're going to get to look at some beautiful photos of breakfast. So we're going to see some slides of the winners of our competition. I'm not sure exactly what prize each of you are going to get, but if you see your photo there, then do email the team at conservation@breakfast.org.au to arrange for the collection of your prize. So we can see the photos of the winners coming through. Aren't they gorgeous? Noodles and Silent Spring. I haven't had my noodles yet, so I'm getting extremely hungry watching this. Gorgeous. Congratulations to all the winners. And again, if you've seen your photo in there, do contact the team by emailing conservation@breakfast.org.au. And again, thank you to the people who have supplied the prizes. That's Mount Avoca, providing a 3-night stay at the Ecolux at Mount Avoca, overlooking the estate and Pyrenees ranges, wine on arrival, a mixed dozen of wines to take home and late checkout valued at $1,000. A Kiehl's Finest Apothecary Skincare Pack valued at $500. Dolphin Swims, a dolphin swim experience valued at $330. Wildlife Wonders, a gift card to spend at the Conservation Ecology Centre's new Wildlife Wonders experience in Apollo Bay, valued at $200. A gift card to spend on redballoon.com.au, valued at $150, and a Moonlit Sanctuary family pass for one of their tours, valued at $70. So thank you again to all of those supporters who provided prizes, and congratulations to the winners. Now, I'd like to also talk about the feedback survey that we have for today's events. That will be emailed to you probably tomorrow. We really welcome your feedback because it helps us to determine, what works about today's event, what you'd like to see in future events. And so that really is valuable feedback to the team. And people who do complete the surveys, they enter a draw to win a $200 gift card from JB Hi-Fi. And the survey winner will be contacted by Friday, the 12th of March. It now brings me to the time to say thank yous. Thank you to some very special people. Thank you to our sponsor, NAB, for making this event possible. Thank you to supporting sponsors, Mount Avoca, Kiehl's, Polperro, Wildlife Wonders, Red Balloon, Moonlight Sanctuary, and JB Hi-Fi. Thank you to our chef, Elizabeth Chong, to our minister, Lily D'Ambrosio, and to our speaker from NAB, Evan Little. Thank you to our hosts, Trust for Nature Victoria and Bush Heritage Australia. And of course, a very special thank you to our speakers, Keelan Malman and Malia Ben, our special guest speakers. Now, before I draw to a close, I just wanted to leave a few parting thoughts because I don't know about you, but I'm a bit of a politics and news junkie. And yesterday, I found a very hard day. Today, hearing the presentations and the speeches from all the women involved in today's event, I have just found so healing. So thank you everyone for your involvement. I do think that given these, it's a cliche, but these unprecedented times, these difficult times of a pandemic and bushfires and so on, it's really important that we do recognise that many of us have experienced pain, and this is something that has been experienced in different areas and over many different years, but also that we recognise that with hard work, there is a path forward and we can and do make progress. So as your MC today, alongside with hosts Vic Miles, Gay Austin from Trust for Nature Victoria, and Sue O'Connor from Bush Heritage Australia, we thank you for being part of Celebrating Women in Conservation Breakfast 2021. We're now going to say goodbye and we're going to leave you with two things. First, a video celebrating the breakfast and Australia's natural landscapes. And finally, a little bit of a special song that I think captures the mood. It's a song called Love and Justice. It was commissioned by the Victorian Women's Trust, which I learned today that Vic Miles has been a board member of theirs in the past. I didn't know that till I read that out today. But a few years ago, to commemorate the centenary of the women's right to vote in the state of Victoria, this song was commissioned to mark that occasion. And the song that they'll be sharing, the organisers will share the lyrics of this song through the chat box on the screen. It really captures that mood of recognising the pain that we've been through, but the hope and determination we all have to use our determination to share love and our commitment to justice to create a better future. Thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you next year.
Hidden in the clouds, the firelight is dying. In the dark slumming street, men, women, children crying. No work today means no pay, and no pay means we're starving. Mother, I'm with child again, I feel like I'm dying.
Pen, your weapon be my fine, courageous women. Let's sign our names 1,000 times for freedom that's hard winning. No more let fear and anger rule with every hand of violence. The moon is shining in the sky as we break the silence. Love and justice be my flag. Live my dream will never be. strangest dream. It came on starry midnight.